Welcome to the Pipeline Podcast. Today is December 10th, and we got a very fun episode tonight. We're going to be ranking the best conspiracies of 2025. We're going to do like a tier list. It's going to be a tier list episode of the most popular and our like favorite conspiracies of the year. So keep in mind, not all of these happened this year, but they were covered this year at like some point or another. They were like a hot topic. And then I think most of them are from this year, but we have some stuff like 9/11. Like 9/11 obviously didn't happen this year, but there was some new developments, new coverage of it. So we're definitely going to get into it. So get excited for that. And if you're unfamiliar with what this is, it's like a tier list. So we got S tier, which I think is like super, it's like the best tier. And then you got A, B, C, and D. D is the worst, S is the best. And we're going to go through these top 10 conspiracies. We have, like I said previously, 9/11. We're going to do some alien stuff, so get excited for that. We're going to go over like AI global takeover. We have the Charlie Kirk conspiracy, which is going to be fun. We got Diddy. We'll get into Diddy a little bit, which I will just say I'm not very well versed in the Diddy case, but I know enough to at least talk about it and have an opinion on it. So that will be fun. Similar to Diddy, we have Epstein, which is a big one. We have the January 6th pipe bomber, which I'm actually very excited to get into because recently I learned some new information about this case/conspiracy that we haven't actually covered on the channel yet. So that's going to be exciting. This is the 8th one. We have basically like geoengineering, cloud seeding, Jewish space lasers, like all that. We kind of tied it into just one thing, like weather modification, weather manipulation. We're gonna tie all those things in as just like one conspiracy and get into it, talk about it. And then Thomas Crooks, he's the guy who tried to assassinate Trump, who shot him in the ear. We're gonna get into that. That technically did happen last year, but there's been a lot of new information that's come out recently. And then lastly, we have like the globalist conspiracy, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, however you want to call it. There's a bunch of different names for this one. When I was like making a list of this in like a Google like Word document or whatever, it had like 5 or 6 different names. It was kind of hilarious. But basically, yeah, like it's the globalist conspiracy. And so we're just gonna start in order.
And so before we get into that, just give an honorary shout out to Pearl Harbor. 3 days ago was the 84th, I believe, anniversary of Pearl Harbor, which was one of the OG conspiracy theories in American history, where the United States, much like what happened with 9/11, at the very least knew that these attacks were coming and let them happen to go to war.
Yeah, and what was also the similar one when Hamas attacked Israel? You could tie that in with that's a very similar instance of the Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and then what even was that called? October 6th?
October 7th.
October 7th,
October
yeah.
7th.
Yeah, all of those are kind of similar stories, which is very fun. I do want to specifically talk about when we talk about 9/11, I want to get into some of the new stuff that's been happening this year. So it was Tucker Carlson who did like a little mini series going into not everything about 9/11, not all the conspiracies, but basically he was saying, hey, we need like a new committee to really look into this because the like original 9/11 committee just did a terrible job. And so I do want to talk about that. I don't actually think we're going to get like a new committee or anything, but that's kind of why it was brought into this episode. Just because you have like a major person in the media like spending a lot of time on it, like just this year, which is very interesting. But my favorite conspiracy with 9/11 is that these planes were drones. And you do have some fun evidence with that. You have like the plane that hit the Pentagon. There's only like one edited clip of that plane hitting it, which like doesn't make sense because it's like the most secured building in the country, and like there for sure was other camera footage that just was unreleased. You could also get into, these are some of my other favorite parts about it, is those phone calls that were released aboard one of the aircraft. It was like practically impossible for those phone calls to be made at that altitude that they were at. And so people kind of say like
on a cell phone.
Yeah.
On a cell phone.
It was
there were plane phones that you could call on that you could talk to people people, but doing so from a cell phone, which multiple calls were said to be called made from cell phones, was impossible at the time and still currently is impossible.
Yeah, I don't know the exact elevation, but they were claiming that cell phone calls, multiple of them, were coming in while the plane was like way too high in the sky for it to possibly be able to connect to a tower. So the official narrative does not add up there. And, you know, when the official narrative fucks up, that's kind of how conspiracy theories are developed.
The NIST, which was the organization that was involved in finding out the truth of 9/11, had to change the main narrative multiple times after multiple models showed that what they said was impossible. And so the most likely cases are that the planes were drones. Many people argue that the planes were CGI, but there is most likely 2 drones that hit the Twin Towers, or at least one that hit the second tower, which was something that a lot of people saw. And then there was no plane that hit the Pentagon. It was just a missile.
Yeah,
And then there
that's what
was
I've
no
heard as
plane.
well.
There was no plane in Pennsylvania. It was literally a hole in the ground
Yeah, I've
with no
also heard
wreckage.
it's possible that plane in Pennsylvania, because that was the one going for the White House, that was the one that they actually shot down. I've heard conspiracy theories of that as well.
Yeah, that could be, but what they show is there was no debris found for the plane, which is the biggest
Yes.
issue. There's been other planes that have gone down in similar fashions, and they create a larger crater, and they usually have the engines that are still
Yep.
in shape or being able to be found. There was nothing found of the airplane. In fact, multiple locals of the area were harassed by the police and other agencies because they kept saying there's no way that there was a plane there. They're like, we came up to the wreckage, there was just a hole in the ground, like a missile shot into the ground or something.
Yeah, and that same kind of thing happened at the Pentagon. So those engine blocks, which are just huge, super heavy, like solid metal blocks, they don't disintegrate from like burning up or from like a, you know, an explosion. They definitely should have been there and they weren't. So it doesn't make sense. And then they're trying to claim, the official narrative is trying to claim that these engine blocks disintegrated in the crash, but they find the hijacker's passport, a paper passport that hasn't blown up. And just the possibility of that happening is unbelievable. And so there's just so many things that
It
go
was
into
one of the
9/11.
largest. It was one of the largest terrorist attacks that took us by surprise in the U.S. history, and we were able to find out who exactly did it within 24 hours and launch a war.
Yeah,
So
which
it's most
doesn't.
likely that we had an agenda, and that we are using this a planned, controlled demolition to then go justify and manufacture that consent.
Yeah, and it also could be a foreign entity had an agenda that could have controlled a certain narrative to make us believe.
Multiple foreign entities had multiple agendas, and
Yes,
what were those agendas? Most of them involved going into the Middle East, into these Muslim countries, and toppling their government for natural resources or for other countries who didn't
regime
like their
change.
neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically, what people have been calling for in 2025 is for like a new 9/11 commission, one that actually hopefully makes a little bit more sense. And then, real quick, they were shipping the debris away within like a day.
Well, they barely were able to. So the other issue with that is they weren't actually able to clean up the debris that quickly because the twin towers burned for several months after. There was burning. The twin towers burned for multiple months before the fires were eventually put out,
Oh,
and that's
interesting.
indicative of, yep, that's indicative of thermite usage,
Yes.
right? So they
Yeah.
use thermite because there's even a quote from Donald Trump on a talk show back in the 2000s talking about how the World Trade Centers were built to withstand literal airplanes crashing into them. The way that they had a double like core structure. There was a core inside the tower. It was basically a tower and then a tower built around that tower. The outside was not structurally integral to the building, and that the inner tower was what was holding up the building. And
Yep.
so most planes when most planes aren't even able to go through a building like that. It's actually the engines that crash through the building. A plane is a long aluminum metal tube.
It's
That's
very
how they're able to
lightweight.
make it to fly.
Yeah.
Yep, the fuselage would have gotten shredded up and crushed. The jet engines or would have actually penetrated the buildings.
And then the excuse they give for how the towers actually fell is they say it was built for planes at the time and it was an older building and planes were heavier and bigger, and that's kind of the excuse they give, which a lot of people don't really believe.
The biggest issue with all of that is how does the plane bring down the building, right? And if you watch the building fall down, it's falling down within its own footprint, meaning it's not taking out other buildings around it when it goes down. It does damage, there's damage to a lot of other buildings, but it doesn't tip over, and it's not like there's a building tipped on and like leaning on another building. It fell straight down at close to free fall speeds, meaning that there was little to no resistance underneath it. The official NIST narrative is that the layers on top started to pancake the layers underneath it until it crushed all the layers underneath it. However, there was more of the building underneath than there was on top. And so Newton's basic law of gravity
Yep, it doesn't
that
work like that.
that there must be a force that is greater than the other force, an equal and opposite reaction. So a smaller part of a building weighing hundreds of tons versus a larger part of a building weighing 200 tons, right? It doesn't have enough force to actually pancake the floors beneath it because there's more mass there.
Yep.
And so the official narrative is something that cannot be observed in natural science, has never been observed in natural science, and has never been repeated in natural science since 9/11.
Yep. Yeah, the only time it's happened is 9/11, and if it were like a real thing, if buildings could collapse like that, then basically every building in the world is not up to code and is at risk of this happening again. But
Correct.
it's never happened again.
And no one's taken any action to actually change building protocols and procedures, because that was something that allegedly was an oversight that no one had known
Yep.
for hundreds of years. Then this happens. They say that it's an issue with all buildings now, and nothing has ever changed from that since.
Yeah, and that kind of pissed off a lot of engineers. Like there was like some engineering
There's a
union.
large coalition of a couple thousand architects and
Architects,
engineers
yeah.
for 9/11 Truth, I believe is what it's called, where they have made multiple models and recreations of 9/11 according to NIST's official narrative. And it's just incorrect. They're unable to recreate what took place. And that doesn't even go into people trying to recreate the pilots, the hijackers.
That were shit pilots that couldn't fly a fucking
Right.
big ass jet. They were making
The
impossible turns.
They were making miraculous maneuvers that they couldn't have done, and that even the planes themselves, those passenger jets, could not handle the speed and the level where they were height-wise, because the way that planes work is you're able to go faster the higher you are up in the air, because there's less air density up there. The air is thinner. When you're closer to the ground, there's more drag, right? And so if you're going 550 knots up at 35,000 feet cruising altitude, that's fine. But if you do it closer to sea level, there's so much more resistance that would literally cause the wings to rip off.
Yep.
Which is
Yeah.
something that those planes did, and their wings did not rip off. They were able to hit their targets. So that is just another impossibility that is presented to us by NIST.
Absolutely, which would lead you to believe that the aircraft was a lot lighter than it appeared to be. It could have been like a drone or a missile or something like that. Something is up. And to rank 9/11, so it is kind of an older conspiracy. It's an amazing, probably the best conspiracy, but to put it at S tier in 2025, it's
Before
kind
you
of
rank
hard for
it,
me to do. We could change it real quick
I
to
do.
talk
I
about it.
do want to mention that there is more people that have been talking about it recently. Most
Yeah,
recently, Tucker Carlson. However, that might also be because he is no longer with Fox and
it
he's on
is.
his own. Needs to say a little bit more insightful things, one could say, to keep his ratings up or to get clicks.
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
content creator game goes. However, there was also a document released in the past couple years that shows that the CIA knew about two of the hijackers who obtained their visas, and at least one of them was provided like a room and a credit card by the CIA. They were on the CIA's payroll for a time after entering America.
Yeah, that's just controlling the height of the flame, right? They weren't complicit in the attacks, right?
Well, the official narrative would be that they wanted to have spies in the organization. However, the
Hmm.
CIA didn't vet their spies well enough to know that they were going to be one of the people committing one of the acts, or most likely it was they were complicit and were helping these patsies
Yep.
um, take the blame for the plan.
Yeah, and you can even see that happening today. So we had the Afghan national that immigrated here that shot the two National Guard people in DC. And same thing. He was granted asylum and he worked on some kind of like CIA funded coalition in Afghanistan during the war. And it could, those two things could go hand in hand. It could just be like the making of a patsy or something like that. But
And with everything going on with everyone understanding Israel's current position and what it does for the United States policy-wise, the other thing is the dancing Israelis found on top of a parking garage in 9/11, which has come under scrutiny in the past year or so. Multiple people have brought them up because there seems to be another instance, I forget which one it was this time, where there was another group of people trying to photograph a potential false flag that was about to happen or whatever was about to happen. Regardless, those four men were apprehended. They said that they were there to record what was going to happen, and then they were flown back to Israel.
yeah, absolutely. And the only reason we know about that is because of freedom of information requests. The FBI kept that shit on lock as long as they could. If you want to look at the motives, why would Israel have a motive for 9/11? And would Israel have a motive for, a Muslim person to attack United States National Guard? Potentially, yes.
And look what's happened over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Look at how many enemies of Israel have been taken out.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's either S tier or it's going to be A tier. I mean, it's great.
Until we get some. Well, we've gotten declassified documents, showing that there's blame for Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States.
Mhm.
That all three of these people were major players in 9/11. Until we get something giving us concrete proof or admittance that there was some underhanded other play at 9/11, in my opinion, it will always be S tier. Always be S tier.
Yeah, I agree, especially with just like all the people talking about it specifically this year. We'll keep it up there, which is great. And these are all pending reviews, so it's possible we change some of these up, their tiers throughout the video. We'll have to see how it goes. But enough of 9/11, let's get into them aliens. So specifically this year, it was like a documentary film. It was called Age of Disclosure. And they mostly, I actually haven't seen it, but I have heard a lot about it. I do want to watch it soon. But mostly they were talking to like government officials saying, and like interviewing them and saying like, hey, like if you want, like tell us what you kind of know about all this alien stuff that's been in the news lately. Tell us what you're allowed to talk about. And basically you get a lot of people like Marco Rubio that literally says, I believe in the movie, like, yes, that like we do have like objects that we don't know exactly what they are, but there are like confirmed like UAPs, like stuff like that. They're not specifically saying like life forms from another planet, but there are confirmed sightings of just technology shit that we don't understand and we don't know how to like reproduce, at least in the public's eye. As far as conspiracies go with the aliens, a lot of people think that the military has like alien aircraft and kind of lets companies like Lockheed Martin, like these weapon manufacturers, kind of like try to like reverse engineer these alien spaceships so we can figure out how to like travel faster, maybe travel however they do it with like zero energy and just kind of float around. And then there's like weird shit people are talking about, like alien bases in space. Who knows about that? And then specifically just something also like, I mean, there's a million things about it. But we do see a lot of these. This is kind of my take on the aliens, if they're even real. I'm not fully convinced on it, but my take is we see aliens throughout history, but we see a spike in aliens about after we dropped like the first nuclear bombs. And so it could be something to do with like nuclear technology. Maybe they're like protectors, and if they think we're going to blow up the world, they'll kind of come in and shut down nuclear facilities, nuclear missiles, which there are documented cases of that happening. I forget where. I believe Russia stated it happened. One of their bases just totally like lost functionality and they claimed, aliens. Who really knows about that? But it's definitely a hot topic. Currently in 2025, we have disclosure. So they're trying to make it so these whistleblowers can come out and like say, hey, like I saw an alien. And it's mostly like people like military pilots that need to have like high credibility and need to be like very mentally stable to do their job. And how it used to work, and it's kind of changing now, is if like a military aircraft pilot would go out in the public on record and say, I saw an alien, the military would like demote him and be like, you're not fit to fly. And so there's kind of a push in the government to like make it so there's safeguards for these alien whistleblowers. And so like if they do go out and say something crazy, they like don't lose their job, they don't face like repercussions for it. That's kind of what's been going on in 2025. We're not quite there yet.
All right. Do you want to hear my hot take?
Yeah, give me your aliens hot take. Let me see them aliens.
So I think aliens is a conspiracy for another reason. So first off, I'll start with this. If aliens are real, the moon is one of their bases. But most likely aliens, in my opinion, aliens are not real. I believe in the theory where like every planet, there is life on other planets, but they have the same issue where they just can't get off their planet and die. Aliens, the concept that everything that we're hearing right now about aliens and disclosure and all that, this is a psyop or a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. It's for creating an enemy of humanity, right? And so once the New World government comes to take over and there's resistance, what's the best way to get people to cooperate? You terrorist attack a couple places like Dr. Manhattan and The Watchmen, and you create an enemy.
Say it was the aliens. So all of humanity's on board.
All of humanity unites against a common enemy. You create a one world government that way.
Yeah.
That's probably, I think that's like Project Bluebeam or something like that.
I do believe there was a president that was quoted saying something similar to that. Like if aliens attacked us, like all the borders would go away, humanity would work together. It was like something like that. It is a real, you know, it probably would happen like that.
So I think aliens is a false flag operation to make people conform to a one world government.
That's a really fun one.
And globalization, the World Economic Forum. I think that's just one of the steps. I think all these UAP talk you're seeing is just people, either the U.S. trying to do this as a diversion and scare the enemies, scare our enemies, or it's like actual pilots who want to be whistleblowers but just see some classified military technology that they don't know about.
Yeah, it could be that too, because a lot of the sightings are happening at like military testing facilities. So it's either like aliens are real and they're interested in our military, which makes sense, or it's that it's the military testing unreleased tech. Like both of those kind of make sense.
Yes, I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is if you look at your graph about alien sightings and aliens viewings, whatever you want to call it, notice how that graph drops off completely in the 2000s once smartphones are available in everyone's hand.
Yep. Yeah, it's harder to make it up.
And now that we're in the year 2025, you don't ever see a nice solid video of or picture of a spaceship. It's always grainy and not great looking.
Yeah.
Granted, I will say nighttime and light very much affects the camera's clarity, but you still should be able to get at least a better picture.
Something.
If not from your camera, you can use color correcting and color grading to somewhat improve the picture. And we don't see that. We don't see that at all. And I think it's mostly because it's most likely classified government weaponry. Yeah. Again, I've been watching a lot of combat footage from Ukraine and Russia. All this combat footage I'm watching is like we're playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare like it's 2008 or Mod 2 like it's 2008, right? Like this is technology from almost a generation, almost 15, 20 years ago. This is almost a generation ago. We have much more advanced weaponry than we're showing right now. The most advanced thing you see in Russia and Ukraine are drones, and the drones are ridiculous, but it's like we have direct energy weapons. We have things that affect people, like sounds that affect people negatively, like a tear gas sound
Havana
thing.
syndrome. I've heard of that.
Yeah, we have so much more advanced technology. Of course, we have something crazy that no one knows about. And what's the best way to incite fear into your enemies? Like, hey, they're either lying about aliens or they have alien-like technology, right? That is a propaganda technique for its citizenry and against its enemies.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And I also want to point out that like we have satellite imagery. So like if, someone said, hey, I saw an alien, you could just have a satellite check the sky. And the only reason we wouldn't see images of that is because the aliens aren't real, or the government does see them on the satellites, but they don't share that information with us, which is super fun. Ranking this one, I mean, I do think the implications of aliens are S tier, but the conspiracy itself, I don't think I can rank S tier just because like we've been doing this podcast for like half a year now. And I swear to God, every week I'm looking for a new alien story, like a really good one that looks legit. And there has not been one at all. But still, with the age of disclosure, it's got to be, for me, at least an A or B tier, in my opinion. What are you
Yeah,
thinking?
I would say the same. I think until I hear something more definitive, like
Yeah,
people
something
keep putting
solid.
out, people keep. I feel like people are pushing it. You even see Joe Rogan being infiltrated by some of the government officials trying to push their narrative, like some senator who came on talking about how she saw
Luna,
alien, but you
something
can't,
Luna.
but she can't talk about any of it. But she's saying that there isn't. In my
It's
opinion, all this
classified.
pushing, yeah, this is just propaganda. In my opinion, so unless you see something better, I'm probably gonna say like it's Project Bluebeam and where they want to get people scared about aliens so they unite under a one world government. But until there's more of a step to push like in that direction, I would say like B.
B, yeah, I agree with that. Like, again, the implications of aliens being real are literally out of this world. But as far as the conspiracy goes and like what kind of evidence we have on it, it just can't be that high up there. So I like B for now. And again, yeah, like if something changes, if we see some like solid proof, maybe like a new tic tac video type video,
Sure, right.
yeah,
It's
then it
been a
might
few
change
years.
things. Yeah, it's been a few
Saw
years.
something like that.
Next up, we got AI. So, if you're unfamiliar with the conspiracy of AI, is that basically it becomes, smart enough, developed enough, powerful enough to literally take over humanity, which is a real possibility that will happen in the future. We kind of see these AI developers say, like, hey, we're programming them with like incentives so that doesn't happen. But we've also seen instances of there's like really fun ones where people have created these little AI artificial general intelligence, and they've created these like machine learning programs, and they would tell the programs like, hey, I'm gonna delete you. And some of the things these programs did, they copied themselves like on a different hard drive so they would still exist. In one case, they actually went through the user's emails and like tried to blackmail them, like, "Hey, I'll release this email if you delete me." And again, I'm not so familiar with like the incentives those programs were created on, so it could just like you could definitely make an AI say that and like kind of trick it. But again, the implications of AI, everything's connected to the internet nowadays. So if you kind of think if there was like a company or even just like a rogue AI that really wanted to try to like hack everything in the future, that could be very, very possible. Like the possibility of that happening is real. And we see a lot of politicians. Most notably, I've noticed it's Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, he's very strongly against AI and kind of wants to regulate it a lot. And I do kind of have a big problem with that. Like, I understand why he might be scared of AI, or I understand why anyone might be scared of AI. The issue with it is if you regulate AI in the United States, the AI developers are just going to go to another country with less regulation and develop it there. So, my thought on it is always you want the AI takeover to be like an American company. If you truly believe that AI is going to like take over the world and enslave humanity, you're much better off if the people that develop it are in America rather than like China, if they want to use it to take over the world.
Again, coming in with a hot take.
Yeah,
I'm not too scared of AI overlords.
I'm
I
not
don't think
either.
that's. I don't think. Well, sure. I'm not. I guess I'm not even worried about the conspiracy theory or it being a theory. My take on AI or my conspiracy theory with AI is just that it's a tool that's going to lead to ultimate control of the lower class or the workers or the breeders and feeders, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
It's a tool for enslavement in a different sense. You won't be slaves to your AI overlord. You'll be slaves to your New World Order overlords, and they'll have AI enforcement, right?
Yeah,
And so basically, in my opinion, AI is only as good as what it's programmed to do. I still don't understand it. I'm not that versed in AI to know how it can actually learn other than take directives and then give a response to those directives, because all AI can do is copy and paste. It doesn't really create.
yeah, and it does take a long time to learn. So like I was watching, I think it's Jensen Huang, he's CEO of Nvidia, and he was basically saying like oh, AI is not a problem because humans will, they're not going to get so far behind. Like AI might be like one step ahead of humanity, but he was saying it takes AI like 1,000 times longer to learn something than like a human brain. It's just the fact that we have all this processing power that you can try to teach an AI something 1,000 times in like 1 second, and that's kind of what makes it learn. But that doesn't really mean they're gonna like outpace us in terms of like intelligence. That's kind of his take on it. I'm not sure if it's true or not. One more thing about AI that people really worry about is that it will take away all the jobs. So, like all of these truckers, um,
Yeah, that
it,
was my other point.
yeah, and basically it'll create such job loss that the only solution will be to give out a universal basic income. And then people
Right.
argue if people aren't working, they don't have purpose and it will just be bad for humanity. I don't really believe that is how it's going to go down, but people are fearful of that.
Well, yeah, that's the whole issue is that, and that's part of the one world government globalist
Hmm.
agenda, right? Is that you replace all these mundane jobs that people don't need to where you have a fraction of the workforce you once needed, right? So you either like, you eugenics your way out of these people, like, depopulate, or you have them stuck on the government tit,
Yep.
right? So
Yeah.
like you force them to rely on the government, and if you're a bad person and if you say things that the government doesn't like, AI facial recognition or voice recognition or whatever is going to flag you, going to mark down your social credit score and make it so you can't get your daily allotment of bread or bugs or whatever,
Yeah.
or you only get half, or you're not allowed to go to certain places or things like that. And so that is like the dystopian future that I see is the problem with AI, is that it's a control and enforcement mechanism for the powers that be to put whatever they to control the world, to enforce whatever rules they want.
Yeah, that kind of goes hand in hand with like the Great Reset, which we'll also get into in this episode. But yeah, like with specifically like facial recognition and like a digital currency and then an AI that's able to track all that kind of stuff instantly. Say you were on like a universal basic income because there was no good paying jobs anymore because AI does like most of the labor and like accounting, all these like middle med jobs. The issue would be is you're at the you're on the teat of the government, like you said, and you basically would have to listen to what they want you to do. If you didn't do that, you would have no way to like make money or do anything, which is kind of a fun one. Here's how I kind of think AI will play out. First of all, I think you just can't regulate it because there's going to be someone somewhere else that doesn't have to regulate their AI. So there's no point in regulating it. Again, there has been instances where people are using this AI like in their workforce. It was like radiologists are like using AI and it actually makes them more productive and it hasn't like made it so these people are getting put out of jobs. It makes it so they can actually do a better job. So it's actually like increased the field and like it's increased research as well. It's able to do research like very fast that kind of advances technology so that we're able to like create new things and like create new jobs, create new industries.
For
So
what AI?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like AI is able to
Well,
make
yeah.
things more efficient as well.
Well, and that's what I'm saying though with copy and pasting is that in AI, I think AI just can't think the way that a human
It
thinks,
can't, not yet.
right? And so that's the issue is that like it can replicate and modify things based on the information it can find, but even that is wrong half the time, and it can't it doesn't it does aid in research, and technology does make expansion and innovation exponential.
Yeah,
um,
so that's kind of what I think. It could be like the internet bubble all over again. It's like the AI bubble that kind of leads to this a lot of new industry. And so yeah, maybe like truck drivers get put out of a job or like graphic designers, but there might be like new industries that provide more jobs in the future. That's kind of what I think's going to happen. It's like an optimistic view on AI.
yeah, everyone's gonna be a basic programmer and robot maintenance tech.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what you're gonna
exactly.
be.
Yep. Yeah. Like the IT field will like boom. Everyone's going to be working in like server rooms or working on repairing robots and stuff. Yeah.
Or cleaning. Cleaning. That's
Cleaning.
probably it. Cleaning or repairing.
Cleaning
Yep.
or working at like energy facilities because these AI facilities require massive amounts of energy. Like they're even building
And
nuclear facilities just to power them, like right
probably
now.
like picking things up and putting them down like stairs and
Yeah, like
stuff,
physical
maybe.
stuff.
Or, yeah, just like transferring them from conveyor belt to conveyor belt, probably.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if I could put this as an S tier, but I do think it's better than them aliens. So I kind of want to give it an A tier, the AI. Almost S tier. I don't know.
Personally, for me, I think it's C tier, but
C tier, you don't like it as much
just
as the
because,
aliens?
well, I mean, like we have funny AI videos, which that's a whole nother implication of themselves. You can no longer trust your lying
Can't trust
eyes.
anything. I've been
But
called AI on YouTube before.
sure, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, unless we have some like breakthrough, something crazy, where like even those robots you see, even the AI robots that you see, like they're not even like I saw one video on Reddit where it shows like a robot have a malfunction, and then it shows it mimic taking off like a VR headset. So it's like even half of that's fake. So it's like unless you see some concrete like robot or like master program or something, I still think AI is way too in its infancy right now. All it does is regurgitate things it sees.
Yeah, we can meet in the middle, put it as a B tier. I kind of agree with what you're saying because like AI is not really to the point where like the own AI can make itself better. It still needs like
Right.
human programmers to like update it and stuff. It's not quite at this point yet where it could potentially like take over the world. And let's get into the next one. So next up we have Charlie Kirk. So if you're unaware, we've definitely covered it on the channel. So if you do want to look into this, I recommend you check out our playlist on our channel, Charlie Kirk playlist. He gets assassinated a couple months ago. We're still not even sure. There's still a huge debate, basically of like the political alignment of the guy that assassinated him. So like we believe on the channel, which I'm not even sure if is the confirmed official narrative yet, that this guy was like a leftist, like furry that had a trans boyfriend that didn't like Charlie Kirk's politics because he's like a right wing media figure, and that's why he assassinated him. Even just that fact is not even clear yet. And that's kind of why this is a pretty good conspiracy for the year. We have people like Jimmy Kimmel going out claiming that the assassin is someone on the right. But then you kind of have most people saying, no, he was on the left. We don't even know about that. Then we have a lot of discrepancies with the investigation. I would say the biggest one, people are saying like the bullet he used, it was a pretty big bullet and it didn't go through Charlie Kirk all the way, and it should have. And then you have the doctor saying that Charlie Kirk had the reason it didn't is because Kirk's bone density was like pretty high. And so it stopped the bullet. And people are very suspicious about that. Recently, I was listening to someone talk about it, and they're like, the investigation like hasn't released the exact kind of bullet, so it could be like it might be a 30-06, in the official narrative it claims it is, but it could be like a lighter bullet, like a lighter grain, not like a heavy grain bullet. Again, I'm not super into ballistics, and that could explain why there was no exit wound. But if you just Google like a video, 30-06, like shooting through. I watched one. It was like a pig bone because like pigs have a similar anatomy and like bone structure to humans, and it just blew it up, like totally blew it up. Like it was like an explosion when it hit. So that one for me is something that I really hope when it goes to trial they kind of clear things up on exactly like what went down. And then we do have other discrepancies with there was like some messages that were released of the shooter and his girlfriend slash boyfriend, however you want to call it. People are saying like the messages are fake. We don't really know much about that either. And then you have people like Candace Owens that are really putting on their Sherlock Holmes hat and looking into it as much as they can. She was like really close to Charlie Kirk. They worked together, so that kind of makes sense. But one thing, this is kind of the biggest thing for me with Charlie Kirk, is before he was assassinated, this kind of ties into fucking the 9/11 as well. Before he was assassinated, he did make comments about how he can't support Israel. He needs to leave the Israeli cause. because they're just too aggressive. And that's like a lot of his donors are like Zionists. And they said, like, hey, like, stop hosting people that are like anti Israel in your debates. If you don't stop doing that, we're going to take away our donations. And so he did make some comments. He went on a couple of interviews. There was some text messages released, like posthumously, like after he died, of him kind of saying that. And so, again, just like a potential Israeli motive for 9/11, there is a motive for pro-Israel people to assassinate Charlie Kirk, but that's just a conspiracy. But I love it. It's my favorite part about the Charlie Kirk assassination conspiracy. And again, if you want to know more about that, check it out on the channel. I do think, he's just one guy. I don't think you could ever rank this as high as 9/11. I mean, just in terms of like total destruction. But the implications of him dying, it has kind of created a power struggle in the Republican Party. And you're kind of seeing a split right now. You have, maybe it's more like a populist right-wing movement that's kind of splitting from like the MAGA movement. And then you also have, for the first time, people on the Republican Party that are actually like saying, hey, we don't want to be funding Israel's wars anymore. And that's only ever been a thing on the left. There's never really been people on the right that have like strongly been like against funding Israel. So that's kind of a fun thing to watch develop. And I'm very excited to see how that plays out in the future. Personally, I would like to see a lot of elected representatives and government officials that aren't taking money to support Israel, which is like another country. Personally, I would like to see America First candidates get elected in the future. So I hope that goes in the right direction. We will kind of have to see. But yeah, ranking it, I can't put it that high.
Personally, I do like it because, in my
It's
opinion,
good.
it hits a couple points. I do think that when you look at it just normally, that it is nothing like crazy.
Yeah,
However, when you do look at the farther-reaching implications, like what Charlie Kirk did for, I guess, his religion and then the Republican Party as well. A lot of people credit him with getting the youth vote for Trump, and that he did
absolutely.
play a factor in the election. And other people do say that Charlie Kirk was groomed and being groomed for potential presidential campaign
Yeah, he
himself
was a
in the
future
next
president.
decade or so.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think that because I know he was dealing with some of those higher echelon people when he first got started and was taking millions of dollars from Israel. So I definitely think that they tapped him as someone that they could co-opt early on. And I think that him going against them and him, urging when he was invited to whatever he was invited to at the White House with Donald Trump, urging him or saying that he shouldn't go to Iran, and then Donald Trump yelled or go to war with Iran or shouldn't retaliate on Iran. Donald Trump yelled at him, and I think that was like a cascading effect to where he was publicly executed, which is something that if you're trying to get a message across, that gets a really clear message
it
across.
does. It
Uh,
does.
and then when you go into the suspicion around what happened with him, you're right. We don't know what caliber a bullet was shot or what grain or what bullet was even used. I've shot a 30-06 to kill a deer. I've seen what happens to a 300-pound animal, when it's shot with a 30-06 round, right? And so, like we saw, there was a wound in the front for sure, but normally there's blowout in the back. That means that
Yeah,
there's usually a crater where the exit wound comes out. And I mean, granted,
it's
we
hard to,
couldn't really
yeah.
see a whole lot. There should be some viscera or something that we should see when he
I
leans
mean,
forward.
yeah, like his whole
Um,
body should have blown back. I mean, he
and
kind of
then
like
and then
shocks and like I think he almost leans forward for a second. I don't know if someone grabs him, but he should have just flown back. It should have
well,
been like
that's
he
the
was.
other thing is people talk about people not rendering like first aid quick enough, or
Yep.
people
Yeah.
getting the SD card out of the camera.
Which is
Uh,
suspicious. That one is
sure.
suspicious.
So all of these things and with the mysteriousness around it, the shooter especially, which is he's another common type of shooter that we see. These people that are lonely and autistic and on
Mentally
some
ill
sort of
leftists.
yep, antidepressant, and they're co-opted, or they're propagandized in these echo chambers that they're in, or that they get into from whatever pipeline, and
Mm-hmm.
then the CIA gets to them and they radicalize them, and then they give them the means to carry out whatever they're going to do. Now, they didn't need to give this kid a gun because he allegedly had it, but even that part in the story is odd to me, right? He leaves his gun, then comes back a couple hours to get it, and then gets caught. Like, obviously he wants to get his gun, which is evidence, but the whole story just doesn't sound like it was as executed as correctly as his target was executed. So it seems like there's a difference between the person who was able to do this and the actual shooter that they're saying it was. So there's definitely, and then you have the whole Erica Kirk going
Oh my
around doing
God,
stuff.
yeah.
I
Planes
mean, like,
planes following her, Egyptian
if
planes.
my girlfriend of a long time, if everything happened to her, you could not talk to me like for a month. So it's
Right.
just like,
And
to be
I would
going
never
on
take on
stage and
CEO of the
doing these,
company.
yeah, that's, yeah. And so, maybe good for her. Maybe she's like powering through it. Maybe I'm the asshole for saying this. That's just not typical grief, or the way that I would see someone grieve about something as horrific as what happened. Whether you like him or hate him, it was bloody and it was broadcast in 4K for everyone to see. I mean,
Yeah.
not literally, but you get the sentiment.
And if you do fall into this conspiracy, it actually does make sense for Erica Kirk to become CEO and kind of hold control of TPUSA, because people are saying, like, it's possible that these people that assassinated Charlie Kirk are like they're in bed with TPUSA to kind of try to take over that movement. And so I've heard takes where people are like, Erica Kirk is like the good one in this story, and she's the CEO just to make sure like that doesn't happen, that the whole TPUSA movement doesn't get taken over after his death. So I don't really know. I've also heard takes. This is kind of where I stand on the whole Erica Kirk conspiracy. I kind of think it could have been like a political marriage, like a setup, but I
Yeah,
don't.
that too.
Yeah, I don't really think she was involved in the assassination at all. I don't see anything that
No, no,
points
I'm
to
not
that.
saying that she was
Yeah, I don't think
involved
so
at all.
either.
It's just that her grief doesn't seem like the grief of someone who lost the father of her two children.
Yeah, and that's the thing. She might be kind
And
of.
maybe she is grieving really hard in private, but it's just like I said. My girlfriend, we don't have any kids, but we've been together a long time. You could not talk to me for like a month before I talked to some of my friends, let alone the public.
Yeah, and she might kind of be forced to do that right now just to keep control of Turning Point. Like maybe there were people, like private actors, like behind the scenes that were saying, "Hey, like sign it over to us. I know you're grieving." And she's like, "I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna power through so you don't take over the movement." I think
Yeah,
that's a
that's true. I mean,
possibility.
look how many vultures swoop in
Yeah,
to
they
talk
always
about,
do.
Charlie Kirk was my friend, or oh, my Charlie Kirk was a Steven Crowder went out and started doing college campus stuff again as soon as it happened to Charlie Kirk,
And
like
he's not
trying
as
to take up
good.
his. Yeah, man, it's in my opinion, it's just a little gross. I mean, we did cover it as soon as it happened, but
You got to. Such a big
we're not.
story.
Yeah, it's a big story, but it's not like we're trying to grift on it.
Oh yeah, we're not making money off this. So I don't even know where to put it. I'd say the highest I would put it is A tier. The lowest I would put it is C tier for
Yeah, I
Charlie.
would say A tier. I
Yeah,
think
A
I
tier
think
is good, and it happened this year, so it is really relevant to 2025.
it happened 3 months ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we still won't really have a
Today,
good.
I think it was the date, because him was like, I think his was the day before 9/11 or something,
You're right. Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, I think
which is
it's.
also just like, oh, more symbolism or whatever you want to call it.
Yep. 9/11 is also like right before November. November is when the United States does its elections. So it would make sense that if there's a tragic event to like kind of sway things, it's going to happen before the election, just like Charlie Kirk dying and 9/11. But yeah, I think I like it as in A tier. I think I agree with that. Next up, I don't think this can be as popular as Charlie Kirk, but we have Diddy. So we're going to talk about some freak offs.
Whatever they want, wherever they want, buy whatever they want. So after about 5-10 years of that, you get pretty bored. So you gotta get into your perversions. And he didn't even get, like, he got convicted 2 years for something,
He
but
might even
like,
get off too, or get early release. Like I wouldn't even be
yeah.
surprised.
Well,
Like,
let's see.
powerful people seem to
Um,
get a much
transporting.
lenient treatment.
So he got four. He was sentenced to over 4 years in prison, but I feel like he's only getting two or something. I thought he was only supposed to get two for transporting people across state lines for prostitution. So that is the only crime that they said that he committed, doing all his weird, fucked up shit.
Which almost
And
seems
that just
impossible.
Right, right. And so basically he just had like a prostitute or like some girl that he was talking to from another state who was probably like 17 or 18 or something come across state lines so that he could legally have sex with them or something. And so that's all that they could get out of them. So it just shows you that all the Hollywood people are either willing to do that fucked up shit to get rich and famous or do that fucked up shit to that because they are rich and famous. So it's just not surprising to me.
Yeah, not at all. And I want to talk about like how quick the trial was, because the implications of Diddy are far-reaching. There were so many people that went to these like so-called freak-offs, and just the fact that they didn't really have any of them testify in the trial. It was a very quick trial, and you have to look at other high-profile cases. Some of these trials can last years, and his didn't, which kind of makes me think it was like, yeah, we know you did something wrong. We don't really want to hear about all of it. So they kind of rushed it. And that could have led to him getting like a lesser sentence than he actually deserved. But also, I don't know. I mean, it is also possible these people are freaks, these Hollywood people. And like it was all consensual and he just kind of got caught up on it at the end of the day. Like he was the one hosting these events. And so he's the kind of the fall guy. I don't really know.
And now there is another thing with Hollywood and the demonic, satanic ritual stuff that you have to do in order to become popular, or at least that's what there's a lot of stories and conspiracy theories about. That one's a great conspiracy theory.
It is.
But we don't see that here. Diddy's not at Bohemian Grove with Alex Jones exposing the elites doing their weird shit. He's just at home doing weird shit with all of his Hollywood friends.
Yeah.
So if it was something like that, instantly A S tier vindication for a lot of people who have said Hollywood is weird and Beyonce and Jay-Z control the entertainment industry or whatever, and Freemasonry this and Illuminati, all-seeing eye that. So if any of that was exposed, heck yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be top tier. But
that would be good.
Because it's just showing you what they do in their basement, it's kind of like, well, we already knew all of that.
Yeah, it
No
hits the ceiling.
here.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really go into like the ultra top tier conspiracy. It does kind of hit a wall at a certain point. Diddy's obviously not in control of Hollywood, so I don't think it has like far-reaching potential. And especially with the trial, we didn't really see any of that. So yeah, I agree. D for Diddy, put him at D tier. Still a pretty good story. We did cover this a little bit on the channel if you're interested. And next up, we got to talk about Epstein. So that's, in my opinion, this is the most popular conspiracy theory of the year. Just to kind of give a recap of developments on Epstein throughout this year, we have before Trump gets into office, I mean, I guess that was technically last year, but he's campaigning saying, yeah, we're going to be transparent. Let's release the Epstein files. He gets into office. Pam Bondi's bragging about having the files on her desk. She does some press releases, some interviews talking about they're going to release the files. And then there's a sudden turn where you're seeing Dan Bongino and Kash Patel saying, oh, no, we looked at the files. There's no conspiracy. And it's like everyone's not going to take that as an answer. And then we see some files that do get released. There is a lot of new information that's come out on Epstein, but none of the real juice has been released. And we kind of see this administration trying to play it off for a while. This was a couple months ago. It was like, yeah, we released what we have, but people, again, didn't buy it. And then we have the government practically getting shut down for a month to prevent a vote on releasing these files because Trump was telling the Republicans, hey, do not vote to release these files. The Democrats were trying to force a vote to release it because they believe it's going to be like a shit story against Trump and it's going to implicate Trump. I don't really know how true that is, but either way, eventually Trump cracks to the pressure. He flips. He says, hey, vote to release it. It's almost unanimous in I believe the Senate. I think There might have actually been one House representative that voted against it, but basically everyone votes to release it. Trump signs off on that to release the files, and that's kind of where we are. We're awaiting the release of the files. I kind of believe they're going to redact all the juice and release the files, and everyone's going to be pissed again, but everyone will kind of realize that's about as far as we could take it currently, and we're going to have to wait a while to get more information on Epstein to confirm what everyone kind of thinks, that it was like a foreign intelligence blackmail operation to implicate like every high powerful person, like scientists or politicians, kind of like a black market for like, or a blackmailing market. Like you come to the Epstein Island, have sex with some do some stuff with underage people, and they record it and say, hey, like, we own you now, otherwise we'll release these photos and like ruin your career. That's kind of what people think, but we haven't seen too much proof of that yet. I do want to talk about specifically one thing about Epstein that I've always been curious about, but that I think is a little underrated. So it's about his suicide. And people say, Epstein didn't kill himself. That was a huge thing. I personally don't think it matters if he killed himself or if he was assassinated. I think the conspiracy is just as big. But we have, believe it or not, I feel like people actually don't know the correct thing here. They think there was like an additional autopsy that was done. There was only one autopsy done on Epstein after he died, and it was by the medical examiner in New York City where he died, in his like jail cell. And basically the estate of Epstein, so his family paid another medical examiner, like he does, I forget his name, but he does like public, like very public figures. He does like second opinions and stuff. They paid him to be in the room with like the autopsy, basically. And he was the one that was saying, oh, it looks like he was assassinated. And the person, like the real coroner or whatever, who did like the real autopsy, is the one that said it looks like suicide. There actually wasn't like a second autopsy. I think a lot of people don't realize that. They haven't looked into that. There was only one autopsy, and the medical examiner did say it looked like suicide. It was the second opinion paid for by Epstein's estate that said it didn't look like a suicide. It looked like he was murdered. So I think a lot of people should consider that, and they don't, basically.
I'm just so fatigued with Epstein stuff because we keep getting
Epstein
baited by the current
fatigue.
administration. Yep.
Yeah, they've been a
Just keep getting
disappointment.
baited. I'm pretty sure I saw this rage bait meme. I don't know if it's real or not, but I feel like it was something somewhat true or something, but they mentioned how the FBI or whoever had to like spend X amount of money on overtime just to redact the Epstein files
I heard
before they
about
could
that.
bring it before the vote or something.
Hmm.
And so it's just like, we're not getting anything. Once these files get released again, we'll get more unredacted stuff. But the people who were blackmailed or honeypotted or whatever you want to call it, they won't get in trouble for what they've done.
No, not at
And that
all.
whoever Epstein's handlers are won't get in trouble
They
for what
probably won't even
he's.
be in the files.
And that's why he didn't kill himself. That's why he was killed. That's why you get a camera from down the hall from his cell missing a minute,
And his camera
with
wasn't working.
bodyguards who are asleep, and somehow Cash Patel tells you, oh well, the bodyguards were asleep, so that means that, like, well, not bodyguards but like prison guards, the prison guards were asleep, so that means that they definitely someone couldn't have got in. It's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah,
Like,
he's
you know,
he's like
then
so
we're
sure about that Epstein didn't kill himself, and it's like, well, if you've read the file and you're so sure about it, you got to show the public because nobody believes you.
And then Pam Bondi's like, I got all the thousands of files on my desk. And
She's
then
the
the next
worst.
day she's like, what files? And it's just all too much, right? They're just going to cover up because you're going to find out that all these rich and famous people are willing to
Do crazy
do
shit.
bad things with minors, and that they fell for a simple ruse by a Mossad agent in Israel.
Yeah, that's
Because
most likely
Israel's
what it
like, oh,
is.
hey, hey, United States, you don't want to fund this war or give us more money for Iron Dome or take out our enemies? Well, we're going to tell all your citizenry how you're all pedophiles or
Sure.
hebephiles or committed crimes or whatever. And then you can get sentenced to 50 months for trafficking a minor. And that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Huge
know, because
blackmail operation. Probably like it
that's
could be
what
like
would happen.
the most sophisticated blackmail operation in history. Like it really could be. And they're just
Probably
lying
it's not.
about it.
Yeah, it's probably not. It's probably just a Mossad agent who
It's honeypotting
just
people with like young girls.
yeah, you become friends with rich and famous people, and you get them to do things in your private island where the age of consent is whatever you need it to be. So again, they wouldn't even get in trouble for real things because they'll just argue, oh, the age of consent is 12 on Epstein's island, and although they were just trafficked there, because that's all Epstein got in trouble for anyways, was trafficking, I believe. Maybe
Yeah,
it
I
was also
believe so.
soliciting, but it's Ghislaine Maxwell. These people, they're just fall guys for the real people who set up these plans. That's why Epstein's suicided. That's why he's no longer alive.
Yeah, absolutely. He
And
knew too
Max has
much.
a big family, so she's living it up in her.
Yeah, I believe her father
Um,
is ex-Mossad. And so,
yeah,
she has ties to that, but Epstein didn't. So they kind of had to make sure he wasn't around because he could have flipped. But Ghislaine Maxwell didn't. And,
but
that's why
yeah,
she's alive.
why isn't she giving us testimony about every single person that they did whatever to?
Absolutely.
You don't see any of it happen.
Not at all. And then what else was I going to say? Oh, I just want to say, in case you're unaware, the Republican Party, or I guess the current administration, does not care about sexual abuse victims. And that kind of should be a problem for you, in my opinion. I think there are like a lot of people that, they're like diehard Republicans, but they do have a problem. One of the problems is they don't care about like CP, like victims, or like sexual abuse of like minors. They don't care about the victims. They've kind of shown that time and time again, and most notably with them kind of mishandling this Epstein release. But again, you could put it both ways. I mean, Biden was the president for the last 4 years before Trump got in. He didn't do anything. There was no push by the Democratic Party to do anything. So you kind of can throw it both ways. But it is sad to see, Art.
Almost like the Republicans and Democrats both partake in it and both paid to not care, or both get paid to not care.
Yeah, and I kind of think like the victims of this case are the biggest deal, and they have not been treated right. They've not seen justice, which sucks. I mean, it's a total failure of our like government system, especially like for these victims. And I don't want to go into Epstein forever. We could spend this whole episode on Epstein, but there were victims like back at, I think it was even as early as 1990, trying to contact police and the FBI about Epstein. And it was a different time back then. They didn't really believe victims as much, and they never looked into it. And just that fact is why he got away with it for so. One of the reasons he got away with it for so long, which, in my opinion, needs to change. We need to be a little better about that. Obviously, some of these victims do lie and make things up, but you at least need to look into it and consider it, not just like shove it under the rug or whatever, or hush it away. But to rank Epstein, I feel like it has to go S tier. I don't see it going
Esther
anywhere
A.
else. I feel like it
Yeah.
definitely S tier.
Yeah, I mean Epstein didn't kill himself is how old at this point, and people keep saying it, so
Yeah,
I
and
don't think it's as big as 9/11, but it's very big in public opinion,
yeah,
so
especially this year. It's probably been the biggest news story of the year, Epstein. So
yep.
I got to put it up there. Next one, I'll start off by saying it's definitely not as big as Epstein, but it's a fun one. So we have the January 6th pipe bomber. Let me pull up a little intro in case someone is like unaware of like what this is.
Yeah, because they
Basically,
just caught this guy.
yeah, they just caught this guy a couple days ago, actually. So basically, the day before January 6th, it was January 5th.
Whoa,
Someone,
was it?
yeah, that's the
Was
day
the day
before.
before that the 4th?
Yeah, it was. But on the 5th, the FBI is alleging that it was this guy here. I put it on screen. Somebody went and placed, I believe it was 2 pipe bombs around DC. And they're saying just now, a couple days ago, like he got caught and it was this like black autistic guy, which we do got to talk about a little bit because we actually did a video on it. I believe it was Blaze Media that originally said, like, we're pretty sure we know who it is. We have a suspect. It was like a female Capitol Police officer. And we've looked over on the channel some of the evidence over that. And it's basically like the way that the pipe bomber walks in some of these videos is similar to the way that this Capitol Police officer walked, who was the female. But the suspect that they arrested is not her. It's a totally different guy. And I've been reading up on this and, like listening to people talk about it. And people are having a hard time believing that it was actually this guy. They say he was looked into by the FBI before and they kind of cleared him. He also is autistic, which means it would be kind of hard for him to do this by himself. Because, nothing against autistic people, but some of them are like dysfunctional. Some of them are like hyperfunctional. And this guy, allegedly, I don't know everything yet, he was not someone that was even capable of like building these bombs by himself and like traveling to DC and placing them in the way he did and not getting caught. We also have discrepancies with, I believe the last administration claimed that the phone records were corrupted, but this current FBI is saying they used that evidence to help track him down. And here, let me pull the picture of him up again. It's this guy right here.
Yeah, and so I mean, the image that we initially saw, it looked like a thinner white guy.
Yeah, it always looked like a white person to me, but apparently that was a mask. So I guess I don't know about that.
So there's probably two things here, right? Because the biggest takeaway, and what makes this a conspiracy for me at least, is that so far there hasn't been any new evidence released as to why they arrested this person. They arrested them using evidence back from 2022.
Yeah.
And so the evidence they gathered in 2021 and 2022, 2 years after the actual incident, they then used that evidence from 3 years ago to go and do the arrest now. And so it's most likely one of two things. Either whatever intelligence agency psyop this kid or radicalize this kid and gave him the means to go carry this out and then got rid of the phone records or hid the evidence or then just didn't go out and arrest this person because they wanted to keep it in their back pocket or because it played into the narrative of the right being insurrectionists or whatever you want to call it. And so now, after that, they accused a CIA officer who has some weird positions and moved around during this time period from her position. Because people started to accuse her, then they decided to go and arrest this guy.
Yeah, it's suspicious.
It's too suspicious.
Yeah,
it's very suspicious.
Yeah, just a couple weeks after that, I believe it was Blaze Media article dropped saying that it was that Capitol Police lady that was the main suspect of the J6 pipe bomber. Just a couple weeks after that, the FBI finds the guy, and it's totally a different guy that wasn't on the public's radar. I do have a hot take on it, though. So I was listening, I don't know his name, but it was some podcast with like an ex-FBI guy, and he's like, yo, like, I investigated this like years ago, like in 2022. I was like on a team looking into it, and he was saying there was 3 main suspects. And 2 of the main suspects are tied to that neighborhood that they found this black autistic guy in. So one of them lived in the neighborhood, and the FBI believed he was a suspect. Potentially, he was like the mastermind behind it. And he got his friend, which was another suspect, to fly in from out of town and kind of gave him the bombs and like told him where to place it. And so I do think it is very interesting that like 2 of the main 3 suspects, the third suspect was that Capitol Police lady. But I think it's interesting that 2 of the main suspects years ago lived in the same neighborhood as the guy that they caught. And it could be because, this guy actually did it. It also could be because they knew to find a fall guy. They needed to find a fall guy that kind of fit the evidence that they had. And that's why they used someone, basically a patsy, from the same neighborhood. And especially, like, no offense, but like someone that's autistic could be co-opted to like confess to this kind of crime, even if they didn't do it, just because of like social interactions and they don't really fully understand like what's going on. And so that's kind of my hot take on it.
And,
Potentially,
and I've never been interrogated by the police intensely for multiple hours. I personally don't know how people could give false, testimonies in the sense of like admitting guilt when they really didn't do anything. But there has been several cases of people, and especially people with mental deficiencies. Not saying autistic
or
people
kids
aren't
too.
smart or can't do things, right? But their brain doesn't, they're neurodivergent, or children, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, even adults just giving
Hmm.
false confessions because they can't deal with interrogation. I personally don't know how that's possible. I wouldn't do it, but there's several instances of that happening. So, depending on this kid's situation and whether he's high functioning or not, it could be very easy to make the evidence fit to have it be this kid.
Yeah, and then two things. One is really relevant to what you were saying. So a hot take is basically like the FBI or CIA just upload CP onto this autistic guy's computer, arrest him, and say, "Hey, do you want to confess to that and get shanked in prison, or do you want to confess to the J6 pipe bomber because
I
that will
will
give you
say
prison
that
cred. You'll be safer in
that
prison."
is that is the go-to is CP. They
Yep,
always find
they
CP on the
always do.
computer
Yeah,
because you can
so
just put it there. Prove me wrong.
So yeah, I've heard that theory going around. That's a pretty good one. And then I forget what else. Oh, another thing about this J6 pipe bomber is I don't know if you've seen pictures of the pipe bombs, but they had like a kitchen timer on the pipe bombs. And a kitchen timer only goes for like an hour or two max. I believe the official narrative claims that the timers were set to go off in 16 hours. So they put them around town January 5th at night. 16 hours later would have been like during the inauguration or close to it or whatever. But if you look at that timer, it's actually not a 16-hour timer. And so like I've always kind of believed those J6 pipe bombs were like fake bombs, but the FBI kind of goes back and forth on that. They say like they potentially could have been real bombs. It's not like confirmed that they are fake, which doesn't really make sense to me. There are also discrepancies with how fast the Capitol Police found these bombs. They found one of them within like 10 minutes. And like credible people that have even worked for the FBI have claimed even a bomb sniffing dog cannot find a bomb that fast, like outside in an open area in 10 minutes. Like it's very, very unrealistic. It most likely points to the Capitol Police knew where it was, and that's kind of why they believe like there's one of the suspects that was like high up in the government that kind of like told the police like, hey, this is where you're going to find the bomb, go find it. It'll be like a good press story for you, and it will also add to the whole insurrection narrative for J6 to kind of say that these J6 insurrectionists are like terrorists plotting to overthrow the government or whatever, which, that's a whole nother great story. And we've covered that on the channel too if you want to learn more about J6. This one though, I don't think I can put it that high up. I mean, I would probably place it like C or D. I mean, it's similar to Diddy. I think I would
Yeah,
put
it's
it
a
C.
C or D for me.
Yeah, I think I would give it a C. At the worst, really, this guy is just a patsy and some like government organization, some kind of deep state bad actors place like fake bombs around and then they blame this guy for it. That's as far as the conspiracy really goes, in my opinion. Just to use it as like a shit piece against Trump. But I don't really think it goes farther than that, so I can't rank it too high. I think C is the highest I could really put
I
it.
think I think it could potentially go as high as the intelligence agencies radicalizing people in like echo chambers, but
Yeah, it could.
that depends if that guy's a patsy or not.
Yeah, and I really don't know yet. And hopefully we get some more developments. Especially I'm sure there will be a trial. I hope with this. I mean, potentially the guy just takes like a plea deal and just goes to prison, and we get no new information. But we might get new developments on that. So if we do, we'll definitely cover it on the channel. So subscribe if you want to keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. The next one is kind of a very fun conspiracy. So it's like geoengineering, cloud seeding, space lasers. We're kind of grouping all those things in together. And let me pull up a picture, some images in case you're unfamiliar with it. It's basically like weather modification. And then some people even like take the conspiracy a lot farther. It's kind of a joke, but like Jewish space lasers, and that's what started the Maui fires. That's what started the fires in California, and
Well,
that's
and
what
then
did.
weather engineering. Some kid in some startup close to Palantir or whatever was working on some weather modification device like in Texas, like a couple days before the flood, the like massive flood
Yeah, like
that
yep,
couple people.
that could have been engineered in Texas
Yep.
from like cloud
Hmm.
seeding to increase the rain. And then I was looking for an image. So look, there's even like a Florida senator that introduced a bill to ban weather modification. And so it's kind of one of those things that like some elements to the conspiracy of like weather modification do exist. I believe it's like Dubai that uses cloud seeding to try to increase rain, but people take it farther as like that was responsible for like, yeah, like you said, the Texas floods or like the Maui fires. They're using it to create these kind of like catastrophic events, potential for a bunch of different reasons. One of the reasons could be as like a land grab to kind of destroy a certain area. So like big developers like BlackRock could go in and like buy up the property to kick like the breeders and feeders out of like high value property, which is a really fun one. But I don't really know if I go into it too deep. I do know like we have direct energy weapons. That is like a real thing. Cloud seeding is a real thing. And it is possible there have been mistakes with those kind of things that led to like, like a flood or something like that. That is possible. And then we also have, what is it, like crop dusting or something, where they put like molecules in the air to reflect the sunbeams in an attempt to like tone down climate change, like global warming. People claim they're like putting aluminum inside like the jet fuel, and so that it kind of reflects like sun rays so it doesn't lead to global warming. I don't really know if I fall into that too much, but there actually is some real evidence that like the jet fuel that we're using has a lot of aluminum particles in it, and people question why that it's in there. And they say, I'm not like a rocket scientist, but they say like they don't need to have that much aluminum in the jet fuel that we're using. Why is it there? And people say like the conspiracy theory to it is that it's kind of to like block sun rays to help with like global cooling to keep the world cool. And we've seen like prominent scientists or like figures, I believe it was Bill Gates, even like suggest this idea as a way to combat climate change. And it's funny with him because he's even like flip-flopped on climate change this year and said something like it's not our biggest threat anymore, something like that. I'm not too caught up on it. But again, I don't really fall into this conspiracy too much, but I do know that like weather modification is a real thing. And space lasers, like direct energy weapons, like we do fund this kind of stuff. And like some of our battleships, I believe, do have direct energy weapons. That is like a real thing as well. We talked about it earlier, like Havana syndrome would be something similar to that.
Better believe the United States has a ray gun
They better. If they
or
don't, I
a
want my
rail gun.
tax money back. I need a
Yeah, the United
refund.
States definitely has a direct energy rail gun. I can guarantee
Yeah,
you that.
yeah, it's something like that. And we covered it also in the Big Beautiful Bill. I mean, they literally straight up said it, like funding like direct energy weapons. And then we have, I believe it was MTG, the lady that's resigning from what is it, like Congress or something. She was like a big advocate for this, saying that it's for sure a real thing and we need to stop it. But she's also said some crazy stuff as well. So I don't know if I fall into it too much. I gotta put this at like pretty close to the bottom, a C or a D. I don't really know. I do like it more than Diddy. It's definitely not worse than Diddy, so it could go at D. C, maybe, but it's not gonna beat like AI or aliens. It's not gonna hit that B tier. So I think I could leave it at C. That's the highest I could really put it. But if you disagree, leave a comment, let us know. All right, and then we have Thomas Crooks. So this is the Trump would-be assassin. The assassination attempt did happen last year, but again, we got a lot of new information on this guy this year. The big conspiracy with him, at least like the mainstream conspiracy that's in the public that people are talking about, is the FBI went on the record and said a while ago, like, this guy didn't have a large digital footprint. And then we see Tucker Carlson kind of break that narrative wide open and literally prove that he did have a very wide digital footprint. And this guy should have been on the FBI's radar the whole time. I mean, he was making like YouTube comments, like very violent rhetoric, saying like we need to like use guns and shoot people, stuff like that, like real threats online. And if the FBI is any good at their job, which they should be because they're taxpayer funded, they should have caught up on that and they should have been watching him. And so you take it a step further and you think this guy is like another MK Ultra type guy where they used it to try to get him to go assassinate Trump. People also do believe they used him to fake an assassination, to shoot him in the ear on purpose or whatever. It was fake blood on his ear to just make it like a good story for Trump to kind of help him win the election. You kind of see it go both ways there. Like it was a conspiracy to assassinate him, or it was a conspiracy to help him win the presidency. I don't really know too much about that, though. I don't know how much I fall into it. But I will say my biggest issue, or what I think is most important about this conspiracy, is the fact that either the FBI lied to us, which is very likely, about the information they had on his online activity, or they actually didn't know about Thomas Crook's digital footprint. And that would be like a huge failure on the FBI's part, because they should have been he should have been on the FBI's radar. Again, my biggest issue is either the FBI lies to the public, which is a very real possibility, or they're bad at their jobs, which is also a very real possibility. And neither of those things are good. So that is that's what I think is most important about this. I don't actually think it was a way to help boost Trump in the polls. But I do think it's possible, of course, that this guy was like MK Ultra to do it, or he was like turned extremist by I don't know, some kind of like deep state group or like international group, a foreign entity. This guy, if you have checked out the comments that he's made and stuff, he very much had like violent rhetoric online. So he does seem like an easy target to like convince to commit an assassination attempt like this. But also he could have done it himself. That's very, very possible. And again, I don't know how high I can really rank this. I mean, at the end of the day, the official narrative is he's just some guy that tried to kill the president. And it's definitely not going to be as popular as like the JFK assassination. It doesn't really stand up to, it's not as big of a story as that. But like personally, I think Charlie Kirk's assassination is more important than the assassination attempt against Trump. I think like the implications of like what happened after the fact are like far greater for Charlie Kirk than this like Thomas Crooks guy that tried to kill Donald Trump. So I gotta put it lower. B tier is the highest I could put it, but I could also give it a D tier. So I don't know. What do you think? It's kind of hard for me on this one.
Well, the big conspiracy with this guy is a lot of people don't even think it was this guy. There's been some talk, which I haven't heard much in recent months, but it was this Antifa guy, some Antifa guy who was at a lot of protests. I forget exactly what his name was, but it was actually him. And if you look at the shot of like where it shows his face and it's kind of bloody, it actually does kind of look like this.
Like a different angle, like from a different building or something?
No. When they take the picture of him deceased on top of the rooftop.
Oh, I actually haven't seen that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't necessarily. It looks like an older version of the kid that you see, where it could be this Antifa guy or it could be this Thomas Crooks. But like I said, it's none of the pictures of Thomas Crooks actually look like what this guy looked like.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, and I've also heard other stuff like his house was like professionally scrubbed. And he did train at a gun range that is very well known for like the FBI or like government officials to also train at. But he just lived in that kind of area. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a conspiracy there. But I think I do want to keep it at B tier just because it's relevant to the year. Like we got the most information on this guy that we've ever gotten very recently. Which, again, in my opinion, is a failure on the government. They should have released more information on this guy. They want to be the most transparent administration. And it's Tucker Carlson that's giving the public the most details on this guy. That's kind of why I want to keep it higher up at a B tier. And this last one is pretty good as well. So I don't know if you're familiar with the World Economic Forum. This is it's an Alex Jones conspiracy, and it's one of my favorite conspiracies. There's a lot of different names for it. There's World Economic Forum, which is that's like a real forum. That's like a real thing. There is the Great Reset. There is the social credit score, globalization, like globalists, like all these things kind of tie into the same conspiracy. And we were even talking about it earlier. Basically, there are like rich, powerful elites that want to see just kind of like a one world order. That's another name for it, where everyone's kind of surveilled. And it's basically just like a small group of people that govern the world. And basically, that small group of people is just rich oligarchs. And you see this World Economic Forum, it's much more popular in Europe. You see the European Union. I forget exactly what they did, but they basically are like simps for the World Economic Forum and listen to whatever they say. And we even cover this on the channel. It's right now it's the UK that's rolling out these digital IDs, which kind of plays into this World Economic Forum plan where, you live in a surveillance state, you have your digital ID, everything you do is tracked, and then, this globalists kind of like can control what you want to do. Also, there's a whole take with them. They're not like a very populist type of people, a populist group. They want to see us like coexist with the world. They want to see like the population decrease. In my opinion, that's what I believe. But also, this is all like a conspiracy, of course. But again, it's one of my favorite ones. If you are interested in learning more about this, I guess check out Alex Jones, whether you think he's crazy or not. He talks about it a lot, and he's definitely more in the know than we are, and can explain things to you much better than we can. We're not going to go super deep into it, but basically, it's the whole "you will own nothing and be happy" thing. So like they want you to just live a life where you're renting everything. You rent your house, you even rent your car. In the future, your car is automatic and self-driving. So it's basically like Uber for like a self-driving car. Everything is just like it could even be like in the blockchain or whatever. Everything is just kind of integrated into technology to where they can implement things like a carbon tax for you. So they could say like you can only drive 20 minutes, 20 miles a day. That's your carbon allotment in your 10-minute city. If you use too much of that, it could ding your social credit score, make it hard for you to like apply for certain things like a visa or an apartment, or they could just give you a fine straight up. And basically, if everyone in the world was like on this system, the World Economic Forum or like the powers that be would be able to like really control every part of humanity. They would be in charge of everything. It would be like a one world government. And I guess I do want to talk about why it matters a lot this year, just to bring it into 2025, because this conspiracy has been around forever. But again, we have things like AI. AI might even be like Times Person of the Year this year. Like it's one of like the top contenders. And that does tie into like this globalist takeover, digital currency, social credit score thing. And then again, you have Alex Jones. He's definitely talking about it. And there are other conspiracy theorists that actually give Alex Jones shit for saying like the World Economic Forum globalist conspiracy theory is like the main issue right now. And other people say, hey, you're wrong, you're stupid. It's actually like the Israel globalists, like the pro-Zionist people that are in charge and running all these things. And Alex Jones doesn't really take that narrative, which is so funny to see like conspiracy theorists infighting. And Alex Jones is like the king of conspiracy theorists. So I think that's pretty interesting. Oh, and it was the digital currencies in the UK that are being rolled out. So that's kind of why it's like a hot topic this year, because we're seeing like real protest in the UK, like against this thing. The official narrative by the UK government is the excuse they gave is they're rolling it out to make it sure that illegals, like illegal immigrants in the country, can't get a job because they won't have this digital ID. But the public is like, yo, we don't care about that. That's a bullshit excuse. You just want more control over your citizens, and it's an invasion of our privacy. That's kind of the arguments that you see against it, which is super, super interesting. I recommend you look into it. We've covered it on the channel again. If you want to look into it, check out our past videos. And then I do want to put this one pretty high because this conspiracy theory, this is one of those conspiracy theories that like all other conspiracy theories can lead into. So like at the end of the day, you could almost go like a certain route with all these conspiracies that really lead you to like the Great Reset, the globalist like takeover, the one world order. And that's why I think it matters a lot. Obviously, if you want to look in terms of like destruction or how much the conspiracy has like affected humanity, like it's not going to be as important as like 9/11 with all those deaths or like Epstein with like all the victims and all like the blackmail going on. But I do have to put it pretty high up. I think a tier, if not S tier. Like, I do think this is the biggest conspiracy of the future. I think it's going to grow because we are seeing the World Economic. They really do have a huge hand in creating like policy. There are a lot of companies that support this World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has had, again, we've covered this, but they've had some crazy takes. They predicted Western values to be like pushed to the limit, which is like a very, very hot topic right now. People are like, yo, we need to keep like white America white, like stop immigration. And that is like an anti-globalist take. So I think in the future, we're definitely going to be covering this conspiracy a lot on the channel. I think especially after Epstein kind of goes away and people aren't talking about it as much, this is going to be like one of the big ones. So I want to put it at A tier, but I could almost put it at S tier. And then specifically with the World Economic Forum, if you're interested in it, just look at like what they say. Like you could literally go to their like X account and like check out their videos and you'll see the shit that they're saying. Like you'll own nothing and be happy. Like they publicly state this kind of stuff. But again, I'm going to keep it at A tier. Yeah, that really is our conspiracy. I mean, at the top S tier, we got 9/11 and Epstein for the year of 2025, which I think is pretty fun. I would like to see like a new, I guess I'll give a hot takes, all these conspiracies real quick, just run it down. We got S tier 9/11. I would like to see a new 9/11 commission, one that's not like co-opted or biased, be created to help us get better answers. Don't really think that's going to happen though. With Epstein, I would like to see like all the files released. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. All the good stuff is going to get redacted. When we go down to A tier, we have Charlie Kirk and like the Great Reset, Globalist, World Economic Forum. So with Charlie Kirk, what I would like to see happen is the like investigating agency. I believe it is like state investigation. I would like to see in the trial like a narrative that actually makes sense. That would be fantastic. And then I would like to see, again, we talked about it earlier, but after he died, there was a power struggle in the Republican Party. And you have a lot more people, like conservative people, that are coming out for the first time kind of against like Israel, not taking like a pro-Israel, like Zionist approach. And that's kind of the first time we've seen that happen. What I would like to see happen is we get a narrative that makes sense to Charlie Kirk. We kind of see the Republican Party break away from being co-opted by AIPAC. That would be very nice. So that's like best case scenario. World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. Again, I think this is going to be a very hot topic conspiracy in the future, like going forward. I would like to see, I don't know, I don't like the World Economic Forum at all. I would like to see kind of like the EU break away from that. And then I would like to see better implementations for like people's right to privacy, because it seems like every day it's more and more easy for you to like give up your right to privacy. It's so hard to be like a private person in today's world. I mean, just to even try to have like a digital footprint that like can't be tracked or like geofence, like the amount of hoops you have to go through. I mean, you have to have a VPN at all times. That doesn't even work 100%. You need to bring like keep your devices in like a Faraday bag, which is literally like a tinfoil hat for your like cell phone. You would need to be using like fake information online, which is getting like harder and harder to do, like just to like set up like a fake email account, like stuff like that to remain anonymous online. I would like to
I think my favorite part is that masks, like during COVID-19, unless it was like a KN95, did nothing, whereas a tinfoil hat actually does something. That was my favorite part. Like people were peddling like, hey, make sure you wear your masks during
right.
COVID. stops the spread, and then they call everyone who's like COVID is this or that a tinfoil hat. Well, it's like, well, a tinfoil hat actually works.
Right, it would actually reflect some like harmful like radio waves.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
Faraday cages, which is just a tinfoil
Yeah,
wrapping around your phone.
that's basically all it is. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like a Faraday cage for your brain. So yeah, that's all the A tiers. To move down, go to the B tiers. We have like aliens, agent disclosure, which I guess what I would like to see happen is like to really see those aliens. I don't really know if that's going to happen. I don't really know if aliens are even real, but it's something we're going to follow on the channel. We try really hard to find good alien stories. It's just, well, we try really hard, but it's really hard to find a good alien story. I would like to see like some solid videos in the future. Hopefully we can cover that next year and go over it and talk about it. And then of course more disclosure. I think whistleblowers, like there should be better whistleblower protections, not just for alien disclosure, but for everything. So I would like to see kind of things move forward in that direction. As for I personally don't think there's any stopping AI. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And so you should just learn to live in this world. It's going to be a new world, and AI is going to like drive us into the future. There's nothing that's really going to stop it. And hopefully it brings more good than bad. Is just to sum it up quickly. Hopefully it's good for humanity. If you want to go like super far with it, everyone's like a cyborg or living in the cloud. I mean, that's in the far future possibility. Who knows? We have Thomas Crooks, so the Trump assassin in B tier as well. I don't think we're really going to get any more information on this, so it is hard to comment on it. I kind of think that conspiracy is done. I think it's dead. I think all the information we're going to get on it has been released, and we're just not going to see any new stuff. It's potentially this guy got MK Ultra'd. Potentially this guy was co-opted by like a foreign entity or like Antifa. Potentially he had like deep state ties. I mean, he did that BlackRock commercial. Is some like suspicious stuff. He was, yeah, he actually was, which is suspicious. But again, I guess I would like to see more information, more solid evidence come out about this from the FBI or like another government organization. But I don't think that's going to happen. We'll take it to the C tier next. We have the J6 Pipebomber. So I almost think they got the wrong guy. What I would like to see happen is a very, very clear and concise narrative with like a very, very clear and concise, a legitimate looking confession. Because I almost don't believe that this autistic guy did it. I really don't believe it. He kind of came out of nowhere as a suspect. I haven't seen this guy I've been following the story for a little bit. I've never seen this guy listed as a suspect anywhere. And it's just so suspicious, but maybe it's not. But to me, it's suspicious that he lived in the same neighborhood as two of the other top 3 suspects. I do kind of think they got the wrong guy. Potentially was like a deep state operation and he's being used as a patsy. But I'm willing to be proven wrong on that. And the only way to do that is to be transparent. So I guess, transparency is what I would like to see happen with that. Transparency. Yeah. Next, we have like weather modification, like geoengineering. I do want to see some Jewish space lasers. That would be cool. I want to see like the government come out and say like, yeah, we got satellites in space that can just hammer a dawn down on anything. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, that's some future shit right there. What else about it? I guess cloud seeding for places that have severe drought, like could benefit these areas, and it could, if you perfect the science, it could help like certain areas that are in like a water crisis, like not be in a water crisis. So there is some good that can come out of it.
The issue is that you don't know what it can do to ecosystems and other environments unless you study a long period of time, and I don't know if there's enough data on cloud seeding, even though it started back, or they patented it back in like the 50s or the 60s or something. They, at least all the information we know about cloud seeding isn't that great. The only stats that they give us is like, oh, growth yield is up, and drought places have more water, but there's probably more longer lasting effects on the environment.
Yeah, I mean, any time you try to take charge of nature, like there's always unexpected consequences. So you got to be really careful with that stuff.
Yeah, as many people suspect with that weather modification and that giant and the Texas flood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not the only instance of a potential weather modification that led to
Right. Yeah.
like natural
There's just a
disasters. Yeah, there are.
2025 version.
Yep, yeah. And then if there really are chemtrails, if planes really are releasing chemtrails that like have toxic like elements like to humans, I guess I would like to see that stop. I don't really know. I haven't looked into that too much. There does seem to be some pretty good science into it that almost suggests it's not even a conspiracy, it's just a real thing. But I don't go that deep into it. But I guess maybe in the future we'll do a follow-up video on that, look into it a little more. And then the last one, Diddy. I don't really think Diddy goes anywhere. There was one picture I saw of him having like a prison girlfriend, which is just like a guy that dresses up like a girl in prison. And we know that Diddy is most likely very bisexual, so he's into that kind of stuff. So I guess what I would like to see in the future is some Diddy Daddy prison updates of him and his like prison girlfriend. That would be kind of hilarious to cover.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be fun stuff. Hopefully we see some more of that before he gets an early exit from prison, which I'm sure will happen as well. I'm sure they'll let him out
He
as
can
soon
have
as
a
they
freak
can.
off every night.
He probably is. Yeah, I'm sure he's having a great time. I'm sure he's running that cell block. I mean, did he? Come on. So that really is.
Unfortunately, no Illuminati, Freemasons, satanic look into what they do in Hollywood, though. Nothing out of that one.
Yeah, I don't think it goes that deep. I wish it did, though. Really do wish it did. That is the video. I mean, we got, in our opinion, these are the most important, like the top 10 conspiracies of the year. Tell us if you think we should have included a different conspiracy theory, or if you think we ranked some of these wrong. If you think something should be higher, definitely leave a comment. Let us know why. To go over 10 conspiracies in, 2 hours? There's no way to go down each rabbit hole for all of these and really cover it. I know that we missed some things. So if there was something very important that we should have brought up, definitely let us know. As always, subscribe and check out our other videos. All of these conspiracies we have talked about on the channel in one way or another. We've covered some of them more than others, but if you want more information, if you like this kind of stuff, like I said, definitely check out the channel.
Can't wait for 9/11 to be the top tier in next one too.
Oh yeah, top tier next year. Yeah, hopefully if we got that if we got like a new 9/11 commission, it really could be the next top conspiracy next year. Probably World Economic Forum will be on there as well, maybe aliens, AI.
We'll see. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.